Welcome to the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and it is time to look at the Super Bowl to see who I think is going to, ultimately, who do I think is going to win the Super Bowl, right? That's part of it, but we're going to look at some of the advantages and disadvantages that each of these offenses and defenses have against one another through the passing game, at the receiver position, and of course for the running game. Looked at all of these starters that are going to be on the field the most through the lens of PFF in order to help get the grades that you are seeing on the screen right now. So something to remember about PFF is that average starts at 60. So don't think of these grades as you're seeing on the screen like the grades that you bring home to your parents. A C is not necessarily a bad thing. Being average is not necessarily a bad thing. In the Super Bowl, it's not a good thing, but it's not as bad as, at least some of us felt like a C was in school. So just keep that in mind. And in fact, getting all the way up to like an A+ would pretty much be impossible given the way that I did the grading, because I was like a 95 or above, which is very rarely given. And much less would it be given to like 2 out of 3 receivers, high enough that the overall grade for a receiver position would be over a 95 PFF grade, where they would get like, where they would get an A+ in the grading system. So keep that all in mind. Other than that, I'll go over. I'll look at the Kansas City offense versus San Francisco defense to start out with. Those are the grades that you're seeing on the screen right now. I'll give you some keys to victory kind of on both ends for the defense and for the offense. It kind of just works both ways with the points that I'm going to be bringing up for the most part, as well as an X factor on both the offense and the defense. So I think without any further ado, let's just get right on into this. If you want to support the channel, you can via, subscribing, liking. Those are the biggest things that help a lot. Commenting, let me know your opinions about the Super Bowl and about what I've gone over here. I'm not going to necessarily agree with every single grade, especially once we get to the Kansas City defense. It's a little bit interesting how poorly I would say that they graded out. But let's just start out here with Kansas City, where everything starts out with Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes, right? The passing attack, quarterback passing attack. On PFF, there are different grades. So right now, I'm specifically looking at the grade for Patrick Mahomes when passing. This doesn't include his rushing abilities that he brings to the table and whatever other factors may go into the overall passing or grade, player grade for Patrick Mahomes. So for the quarterback passing grade, he ends up grading out as an A- on the little grading scale that I did. And when we compare that to the coverage grade of the defenders on San Francisco's side of the ball, they got a B- as a unit on average, essentially as a whole. So obviously advantage in the passing attack going to go for Patrick Mahomes. And when we look at this offensive line versus the defensive line, the front 7 versus the front 5 for offense. The front 5 for Kansas City given a B- here. And I will say in the passing game, Travis Kelce doesn't stay back and block enough that he's not included in this pass blocking grade here. At least I don't think he was. I know George Kittle wasn't. I was a little surprised how little George Kittle goes out. But regardless, I looked at little nuances like that too to help with the grades. But all in all, the offensive line here in the terms of pass blocking for Patrick Mahomes, not excellent. A B-, not bad. Just kind of pretty decent, but going up against a much better front 7. I don't think we needed this to know that, but the front 7 for actually just the pass rush, not even the front 7, the front 4. Graded out as a B+, A- for the pass rush versus the pass blocking for this offensive line. So advantage San Francisco in the trenches up front. But at the end of the day, Patrick Mahomes, his overall abilities are going to outscore the coverage and the front 4 combined. The overall defensive unit in the passing game getting a B/B+ for San Francisco. So very solid, very good grade there. But Patrick Mahomes, with that rushing ability that he brings to the table, etc., it gets an A. And I do think that, especially on a good day, he definitely has enough to overcome any defense, including the San Francisco defense, which once again does have the advantage up front to potentially make a bad day for Patrick Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes also has the ability to overcome that. As far as the receivers go, it's a dead heat here between the coverage abilities of the defense here, this B- being like that same B- would have used up here, compared to the receivers, a B- for this receiving team as a unit. So, yeah, that feels about right. We know the struggles of Kansas City, and if it wasn't for having a very great tight end and Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice, it would be a really low receiving grade, but both those two helping to bump this unit up. And as we've seen, that has been enough, especially in the playoffs, for them to beat very good teams. It's been a good enough unit, once again, especially here in the playoffs. And on the other side of the ball, San Francisco, their secondary is just, frankly, not their strength. But as a unit, they do still play quite well. And I think that you can see that in that B-. Now, when we go look at the rushing attack here for Kansas City, and we look at the front five versus the front four, for run stuffing, this front four not as good for San Francisco. Graded out as a C+/B-, much better at rushing the passer. But good for them. The offensive line on the other side of the ball, not so great for Kansas City. Got a C- there for Kansas City's run blocking abilities. So that's, not promising, but we've seen this running game tick all season long. Why is that? Well, because their running back, Isaiah Pacheco, B+, very good running back who is made the most out of what he's had in front of him. And once again, comparing that to that C+, B- run stuffing of this offensive line. And when we combine the O-line and the running back together, I got a B- grade for this rushing attack versus that C+, B-. So just on the cusp of being a B- there for the defensive side of the ball here in the running game. But ultimately, slight nod to Kansas City and this rushing game. Essentially a toss-up, but not quite the same toss-up that the wide receivers were and the cornerbacks. So, yeah, just something to keep in mind. All in all, on the season, points per game scored for Kansas City, 22.1, as you can see on the screen, versus what San Francisco has allowed on average, being 18.4 fantasy points. So it should be a tougher game for Kansas City to maybe get up to their average here over 21 points. Would be, impressive, an impressive day from this offense against this defense, ultimately, based on what they've done all season long. So, given some of those factors, I'll touch upon those a little bit here. You'll see those come up in the keys to victory and the X factors. Just starting out with the keys to victory, and I'm sorry, I just didn't end up having enough time to make visuals here for you. I wish I didn't really think of exactly what I was going to do until pretty late for this video. Just been working on NFL drafts stuff, and I could have made you some slides. It would have been cool for these keys to victory, made you a little better visual than the one I have on the screen for everything. But this works out fine. So the keys to victory here is going to start out with the interception thrown percentage. I should have clipped these and put these up on the screen. I'm sorry. But you can still look at these other things that are over there. As far as the interception thrown percentage, Patrick Mahomes has thrown an interception at a rate of 2.3%. That's 19th in the league, so that's not great. Bottom half of the top 32 starting teams, at least. So not I would say probably not going to be his best year in that category. And unfortunately for him, he is going up against a team who's turned over the ball a lot at a rate of 3.45%, which is the second highest San Francisco's defense in the league. And so there's going to be a key to victory right there. And we know this, for every team. Turning the ball over, it's a terrible thing. But as far as this San Francisco defense goes, I do think this is a tight game. I don't think that one of these teams blows out the other team. And so for San Francisco, turning that ball over is going to do a lot towards helping you to win the game, just like for Patrick Mahomes. You turn the ball over, it could be detrimental to your game. Just one turnover even. So really want to take care of the ball, not make those errors, and not get frustrated if your if your offensive line is struggling against their defensive line. Play through it, work through it. Don't make stupid errors. Going to be huge for Patrick Mahomes, and we'll get to him again soon enough here. Another key to victory is maybe you could call this an X factor almost because it is a single person, but Rashee Rice, he averages 6.4 yards per reception in YAC, yardage, after the catch, 6.4 yards. That is third most in the league. Very high. We see on the other side of the ball a lot of YAC yardage. So this kind of goes both ways for these teams. And in this instance, it also goes both ways for these defenses. On the other side of the ball, San Francisco, really good at preventing a lot of YAC. They allow an average of 9 yards per completion. That is the third best or third lowest amount of yards per completion allowed in the league for any defense. Interestingly enough, we will see on the other side of the ball, 8.9 yards for Kansas City, second least in the league. So both of these teams great at preventing YAC. San Francisco, the whole offense is built around YAC, and Kansas City, this offensive scheme isn't necessarily built around creating YAC and having players with high YAC. However, it doesn't hurt it, as we've seen with like a Travis Kelce through the years. And that's why I liked Rashee Rice so much for them. And that's what Rashee Rice has brought to them, especially down the stretch here, as this offense has improved enough that they've been able to progress through the playoffs while playing, clean games, and their defense continuing to do what they've done all season long. And with that, that's going to be a huge part of the game. Can Rashee Rice, instead of catching the ball 3-4 yards down the field, is he going to end up with 3 or 4 yards on most of those receptions, or is he going to break, another 3 or 4 yards per reception at least on average? Make those into 7, 8, 9 yard plays instead of the 4 yards that it could have been. Or that you got when you caught the ball. That's going to go a long ways towards helping the chains to continue to move on drives, it's pretty self-explanatory. More yards is huge, but Rashee Rice is kind of the heartbeat of this receiving group outside of Travis Kelce, obviously the true heartbeat of the receiving group, but of the wide receivers, Rashee Rice is the one who helps to make this thing tick, and I think that would be very important. I thought Jerick McKinnon might be returning for this game. I thought that would be like an X factor for this team. Doesn't appear like he's going to come back. So I think really I don't think there's any tricks that Kansas City, they do trick plays and stuff. But I think all in all, it's going to have to be pretty straightforward for Kansas City. You're just going to have to execute. And that comes to the next key victory for Kansas City, and that's just going to be playing a clean game. I had the same thing for them last week against Baltimore, and they did play a completely clean game compared to Baltimore on the other side of the ball not playing a completely clean game. And I do think that had a huge factor of helping for the final outcome of that game. And just all in all, throughout the playoffs, Kansas City's been playing really, really well as far as not turning the ball over, not having penalties, kill drives, or help the other team continue their drives. They've just been playing smart games here, and so that's going to go a long way. So we got a cat incoming here. Okay, somebody wants some attention. So I think I finished that point up. And then the play calling. This is going to be on both sides of the ball, too, for both teams. Defenses, offenses, all around. The play calling is very important. There's a reason that these teams are very good. And it's not short of the fact of the coaching staffs for these teams. And they're going to need to be on, in the other team's pockets, so to speak, to help their teams win this game. It's going to be very important calling the right plays at the right times against these defenses in order to give yourself some sort of spark, big play here or there. It could go a long ways in this game for both of these offenses. And so that is one of my keys to victory here, especially for Kansas City. But I know how that is a key victory for San Francisco as well. Just timing up those play calls, and I will say just ahead of time here so I don't forget it, for San Francisco, the play calling, personally what I think they need to do in this game is to spread that ball around in the passing attack. I think a lot of running is going to go a long ways. You don't want to get too keyed in on just running the ball, and so I think that this offense needs to, or the defense of Kansas City, you can put them on their back feet, have them flat-footed, not sure where to go, where the ball is going. And if you can do that, you can prevent that pass rush from coming at you as well. And I think you pretty much win that game. So if everybody can catch those passes, and if you can just get the ball going to this guy, that guy, this guy, that guy, every play, a new guy catching the ball, that's going to go a long ways too for San Francisco. Let's stick to Kansas City here, though, for the X factors. On offense, Patrick Mahomes is my X factor. Now, I know it's weird. Like, X factors are usually not, the star player of a team or anything. But in this situation here, I do think, especially like you go back and you look at the grades, you see the receivers, it's a dead heat there. You look at the offensive, the rushing game, pretty much a dead heat there between these two teams as far as how well the defense does and how well the offense does. But and then you look at the offense, the passing attack, and yes, at the end of the day, it went in favor of Patrick Mahomes against this defense, but still a B/B plus, almost a B plus for this defense, which is once again very, very good grading there. And you look at the offensive grade there, a B minus compared to the much better offensive line grade or defensive line grade there for San Francisco. And what determines who wins this game? I think for Kansas City, it's obviously a continuation of what they've done through the playoffs, some of those keys to victories, and part of that is Patrick Mahomes not turning the ball over, etc., playing a smart game, and at times breaking out of the pocket, getting a first down with your feet, at times finding the open receiver while you're scrambling because of the offensive line struggles, at times throwing the ball away instead of taking a sack and just going on to the next play, instead of forcing a throw and creating a turnover. I think that those are going to be the keys to victory on offense. It comes down to, does Patrick Mahomes get frustrated or not? Is he the Patrick Mahomes that we've seen through the playoffs, that we've seen throughout his entire career, including this year, or is he the slightly more turnover-prone Patrick Mahomes that we've seen that gets frustrated with his receiving core, etc., throughout the season, throughout the regular season this year? Which one do we get? I think that goes a long ways towards who wins this game. And on the defensive side of the ball, the X factor is going to be a unit for me, for Kansas City, and that is these linebackers. They've got it rough here, I believe. How well do they cover Kittle, McCaffrey, combined with how well do they stop the run, McCaffrey? I think, if they don't have a good day, if they're not in the hip of Kittle and McCaffrey every time that they're going out on a route, preventing the easy throw to these guys, preventing yak when they do catch the ball, it's going to be a long day for this defense if that's the case. So they've really got to be on top of their game as a group for this defense to not just end up getting whipped up and tired throughout the entirety of the game, I think. Now, it is time for the San Francisco. What's working in favor of San Francisco winning this game? What's not? Starting off with the passing game, quarterback Brock Purdy, B plus as a passer this season compared to what has been a C plus unit against the pass in terms of the individual players' abilities, coverage abilities on this defensive unit for Kansas City. So obviously in favor of Brock Purdy being able to throw it against most of this Kansas City unit. Of course, L'Jarius Sneed, very, very good, causes troubles for opposing offenses, and he's part of that unit. But outside of that, should be able to find his targets, right? Especially, you cheat, look down at those receiver grades, a little bit of a difference there. It's a very good receiving unit. And for the receivings, by the way, for San Francisco, I do have a tight end and running back both included in the receiving unit here. Whereas for Kansas City, I did not include Isaiah Pacheco in the receiving unit there. I'm sure he'll catch a ball or two, but he's just not a big part of their offensive focus in the receiving game. So when we look at the offensive line here, however, for San Francisco, not a very good pass blocking offensive line. And they're going up against, luckily for them, not quite the same kind of unit in total as far as the pass rush goes as their own, but Kansas City, a formidable pass rushing unit on their own, mostly thanks to one player, Chris Jones, and so that is a B minus. So that is going to be a point in favor of the front seven, the rushing attack of this Kansas City team against this offensive line. Both of these teams have successfully not made their less than stellar offensive lines been an issue for their passing attacks overall. And so that's going to be a big part of this game for both of them. Can they continue? Once again, I think in large part thanks to good play calling, continue to overcome less than stellar offensive lines. We'll see. That's going to be a big part of these games as well. And then when we look at the overall passing attack, A minus for Brock Purdy as a quarterback, and then you see the C plus ends up being in favor. The offensive line pass blocking wasn't that much better enough to make this a B minus or even a C plus / B minus. Still, the back end, the secondary C plus outweighed the offensive line, because I took the average of both that C plus and that B minus, but it still came out to a C plus for this defense on a whole, front four and the back seven. So above average, good enough to get you to the Super Bowl. And we've all seen this team. To say that they're a C plus seems a little low, and you can see we've just got all C grades basically for this defense going forward. For the receivers, C plus as far as this secondary goes, versus these receivers a B plus / A minus for San Francisco. Definitely not going to argue against that, but the C plus there, and then for the run stopping ability of this Kansas City defensive line, a C. That makes sense. A B for this offensive line. Yep, they are probably a little bit better at blocking for the run than they are for the pass. As far as the running back goes, Christian McCaffrey, he's the best running back in the league, so it should be an A plus, right? But that's just, that's how hard it is to get an A plus, just to give you another reminder of this scale and the fact that these C's are not bad. But once again, when we see them going up against a B, there is a difference there too. So a C versus an A for the running back there. Come on, Christian McCaffrey. This is, if you're not putting him into your DFS lineups, I think you're doing everything wrong. Then for the combination here of the offensive line and the running back, still going to be a B plus over this C grade for the defensive run stopping. So there is, I guess both in the receiving and the rushing here, we've got some advantages working in favor of San Francisco in terms of how they grade it out. Now, as a unit, we know with the play calling of this defensive staff of Spags, they're better than a C. They only allow 16.8 points per game. That is fewer points than San Francisco, a very good defense that allowed like 18 points something. I would say, it's a little easier to allow 16.8 points when your offense only puts up about 22 points compared to that 18 points when your offense puts up 28.9 points, which is what the San Francisco offense puts up on average per game. You're going to allow some late touchdowns in those situations. So I still do think, even points per game wise, San Francisco, while it's important, probably allows fewer points. But obviously, Kansas City has done an excellent job of preventing teams from scoring a whole lot against them, and that would go a long ways towards winning the Super Bowl. So let's look at these keys to victory for San Francisco, and it's going to start off in the red zone. The red zone scoring for San Francisco, first in the league. On average, they score about 69% of the time, giggity, that they get into the end zone, whereas on the opposite side of the spectrum, almost, eighth in the league, the Kansas City defense only allows teams to score about 51% of the time that they get into the red zone. So, key to victory, both teams. Kansas City defense, you can't allow them to get those touchdowns. Force them to either kick a field goal, which they might miss, or go for it on fourth down and don't let them convert. On the other side of the ball, of course, San Francisco, you're going to have to finish these drives. I don't know against this defense how many times you're going to get down into the red zone. I don't know that the big play, the 60-yard touchdown's going to happen. It might, but I wouldn't rely upon it. So when you get these opportunities in the red zone, you're going to have to finish these drives, and I just don't think that you're going to want to settle for 3 points. Probably true for both teams here, but that's been the recipe for Kansas City. It's preventing teams from getting into the end zone there, and you're gonna need to score a little bit here against Kansas City because I do think they're gonna put up some points against your defense. Then when we look at the yak argument, average yards per completion for San Francisco, 12.9 yards. That is first in the league. This whole scheme is built around it. They've got the guys, Debo especially, who get you those yak yards when they catch the ball. Issue is going up, as I stated before, 8.9 yards on the defensive side of the ball for Kansas City, a team that does a very good job of you catch the ball and you're tackled. No more yardage for you. You're down. So those short, catches that go for 10 yards are now just 3 yards, like I was talking about with Rashee Rice. And, like I said, Kansas City, that's not necessarily their scheme for San Francisco. It's their whole scheme here. If they can't get yak and one of these other keys to victories or my X factor doesn't have a great day, they're going to be in big trouble, because you can't get into these third and long situations against this Kansas City defense. Now, we all know San Francisco's pass rush is nasty, and we saw Kansas City's pass rush. It doesn't get the highest grade here, but they do have a player on that team that has helped them as a unit to get to be the number one highest sack percentage leading unit in the league. Kansas City, on average, given the opportunity to get a sack, gets one at the highest rate in the entire league. So, San Francisco, you just can't get into those third and longs. First, second down, you need positive yardage, and part of that's going to have to be from yak, because we know Brandon Ayuk, your big chunk getter, he's going to be having a tough day going up against L'Jarius Sneed. If he can win that a few times, that's going to go a long ways to helping to open other things up. Everything works in cohesion in this offense, and part of that is being able to just absolutely dice these teams up after you catch the ball. And so going to be a very important factor for them. I think maybe even more important, or a factor that works in their favor, is going to be this rushing attack. The key to victory here, fourth in the league, 4.8 yards per carry is what we got for San Francisco's offense, and they're going up against a defense who ranked 25th in the league against the run, allowing 4.5 yards on average. So, just run the ball well and a lot, and I think, control the clock, all those good things. You got the defense on the other side of the ball that can stuff teams. Don't get scared if you fall behind early. Keep running the ball. Christian McCaffrey is a beast, and he's going to be coming up in just a moment. But before we get to that, play calling. You thought I was going to do like an ad read, didn't you? I kind of set it up for that. But before we get to that, let me tell you about Magic. I can't go any further than that. Play calling. I talked about it. Very, very important. Kansas City side of the ball, going to want to be on top of their game. And as far as San Francisco goes, get that ball into everybody's hands without the defense realizing who it's going to go to every single time. It could go a long ways towards opening things up. So come out early with a good, call sheet and really spread that ball around, and preferably just be in one formation and the ball still goes to 5 different people from that single formation. That's how Kansas City. That's how San Francisco likes to do things. And at the end of the day, for both of these teams, I don't think they need to do anything different. They don't need to change who they are to win this game. They both need to win it by being who they are. Kansas City just needs to do what they've done in the playoffs to give themselves a shot to win this game. San Francisco needs to be the team that they've been all year long to, I think, win the game. I do think that they are the slight favorites in this game, but it's pretty close. It's going to bring us to these X factors before we get to wrapping this up. And it's Christian McCaffrey for me. So just like on the other side of the ball, I know, I'm sorry, X Factor shouldn't be like the stud. But that's the thing. Christian McCaffrey here, MVP of the team. I mean, Brock Purdy's been great. And technically, if there was MVP voting, Brock Purdy would probably get it over Christian McCaffrey. But hey, a year plus ago, we traded a bunch of stock, capital for the draft to get Christian McCaffrey into a 49ers uniform because we knew he would be absolutely elite in a 49ers uniform in this system, and brought him here to win a Super Bowl. Let him, carry you. There's no other way to put it. Let him put the team on the back. Christian McCaffrey, I want to see several receptions, several balls thrown his way, and I just want to see him running the ball. It's going to go a long ways. Before I forget about it, too, a slight nod to Kansas City coming into this game, what should help them a little bit, health. Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, a little banged up coming into the game, so hopefully, those aren't things. Deebo Samuel even banged up coming into it. Hopefully those things aren't going to limit this offense from being everything that it can be, because, that would hurt. X factor for the defense goes back to, doing what you do. This defense is built in the trenches. That's where it starts and almost ends for this defensive unit. That pass rush, getting to Mahomes is what I wrote. Getting to Mahomes. You got to finish the play in one way or another with Mahomes. You can't let him escape out and get the 3rd and 12 with his feet. That's no bueno. You don't want to do that. I don't think as a defense I don't think they really have anybody to specifically try to eliminate that other than trusting this front line. So play smart, keep your lanes in front of you, but also be aggressive and get to Mahomes. End the play in a sack. That goes a long ways, right? Or force him to throw the ball away, hopefully recklessly, but even if it's just throwing it away safely, force him to do one of those things. Throw it away, take the sack, or try to go for it and then, give him 1 or 2 yards and tackle him by the shoes and laces or something. Don't let him get out of there on you. So that's how you do it there, defense. A lot easier said than done, but it's on your front four there defensively to help prevent this KC offense from starting to really get things rolling against you. That's going to be it because, Patrick Mahomes could eat your secondary for lunch, frankly, if there's no pressure on him at all. So that brings us to wrapping this up with my prediction for the game. And originally, I had it San Francisco 21 to Kansas City 20. 21-20, San Francisco. Ended up changing it. It's 21-19 because I was kind of going through a game flow as to how we get to that score, and I ended up on this, so you'll see. So to start out the game, first of all, throughout the playoffs, Kansas City has come out hot and been very good, first drive of the game throughout the playoffs, first quarters of the games. San Francisco, the exact opposite, has played very well late in games, but has started games very slow. And I think that there's a pretty decent chance, that trend continues. And so in this scenario, I have that trend continuing, whether it be Kansas City scoring twice in the first quarter or early into the second quarter, whether that be 2 field goals or 1 field goal and a touchdown. Remember, one of the keys to victory is going to be preventing touchdowns always, So holding Kansas City to 3 points once or twice here on these early drives where they're trying to build a lead. Just keeping yourself into the game mentally could go a long ways here. So 6 or 10 early second quarter or so to 0 is the score before. At some point before the half, San Francisco scores. So either 6-7 Kansas City in favor of San Francisco or 10-7 in favor of Kansas City. One or the other. Not a huge high-scoring game. I'm not expecting this game to be a massively high-scoring game. These are 2 very good defenses. Yes, offense for San Francisco has been very great too, but Kansas City's defense is very good. So going into the early portions of the third quarter, and we're going to see Kansas City score yet again, whether that be their first touchdown or getting their second field goal. 13-7 is the score at this point, and by the time that we reach the fourth quarter, it is now 13-14. San Francisco pulling in the lead by 1 point, and at this point, Kansas City goes for it. They get a touchdown, so it's 19-14, right? 2 points. Puts you up 21-14. As you know, I have them projected for 19 points. So they fail on getting those 2 points, opening the door for San Francisco, whose running game comes through as they haven't forgotten about that all game. And they get a nice either play action pass to George Kittle or maybe Christian McCaffrey's third touchdown to go up 21-19. And if there's enough time on the clock here for fun, I'm going to predict a late pick by Mahomes on the, going to go and get a field goal to win the game with no time on the clock type of drive. Mahomes gets, the pressure gets to him, and I'm going to say for the first time of the game, maybe he has a fumble earlier from a sack or something like that, but this time he throws the pick. Or maybe he turns the ball over. We'll just go with that. So there's my prediction for you. San Francisco recovers the ball or the pickoff, kneels it, and are going to be able to run out the clock from there pretty much. How I am predicting this game to go. So San Francisco are my victors. And there you go. Thank you very, very much for tuning on into this video and sticking around. Appreciate you. Love you. Peace out. And good luck to both teams. I've rooted for Kansas City more times. They've been there and done it more times as of late. So I'm slightly rooting for San Francisco, but I like both teams enough. So I hope it's a fun game, and I think it's going to be a really good game down the stretch. Just don't expect a whole lot of scoring. Peace out.